Now I would like to show you how in the DocIntel, how hybrid retrieval, summary, compare, chat feature is working. Let's take a look. We know that from the ingestion process, documents are chunked and put into the GCS, Google Cloud Storage, and also embedded to the Postgres as PG vectors. Now, during the search stage, let's take a look. I'm directly going to one of the chat, and I wanted to create a new chat, and I am picking few documents from here. Say I'm picking two lease documents, and I'm asking some questions. From these two documents, show me the landlord and tenant details. So here I can select the PII options also. If I select earlier the PII options, it means that's when it returns, it basically, ensure that PII data does not pass through. So if you see from here, what it finds out are is there's a landlord and tenant details it gave, right? Based on the conversation. How does this happen in the chat, right? So if you see the answer that comes, there's some background information called PG vector. I'm clicking this one. Now you see there are information that comes, and it basically says that everything is re-ranked, right? It came from there is a source, right? It means the documents are when the documents are chunked from the chunked document based on the keywords, right? So I mentioned about the landlord, tenants, and the semantic meaning of whatever I said, like from this document, show me the landlord and tenant details. It finds the relevant informations, right? Then it does a reciprocal rank fusions. There's a formula over there. What it happens if there is a reciprocal rank fusion, it takes top n from the keyword match and top m from the semantic match. Then it applied a formula. Then it further re-ranks and send the informations and collect the informations, and that's in the form of these re-rankings. So some of the information that came from, you see, that's one of the documents called Liz Alicia Hernandez, another the list extensions. So both from both the documents, then these informations got picked up. Then what happens is this information is fed to the LLM Gemini, right, in this case, and then Gemini further summarize these informations based on the context or that it returns from the vectors, right? This is the typical hybrid retrieval looks like. Now the next is that I wanted to know that's how accurate or what is my confidence level, right? And for that I have an options to evaluate. When I click the evaluate for any conversations, not only this one, what it does is it take a look and then it pass the LLM. The answer, it looks at the questions, it looks at the answers, and there's a system context behind the scenes, right? And there is a data that gets retrieved by using the semantic search. Based on that, right, all of these informations, there's a LLM as a judge that comes in place, and that basically evaluates with the score and the explanations. Same information that it returns, the relevance, it says the 5 out of 5, and it has an explanations, right? Predicted is the answer directly and completely address the questions by provide the landlord's name and address and the tenant names, both their initial and updated address. The specificity, relevance, some confidence, right? Well calibrated, this comes as a confidence. So when these informations, usually it comes 5 out of 5 or 4 out of 5, there is a likely chance the information it is able to pick up very well. So this is the way that we can also understand the probabilistic um, answer that comes from the LLM, how good it is, right? So these are the evaluation metrics that basically determine. So that's where we said, so now we know that's how the answer gets grounded using the hybrid retrieval, right? And also here we can also have an options to put thumbs up and down, so we know that okay, I like these answers, so this is going to stay in the history. Now I can ask a further questions. So let me ask another further questions. What are major clauses? So look, so when it does this thing, it knows as a part of the sessions what was the earlier discussions, right? And sometimes what happens is as a part of the if from my questions, if the information exists earlier, then it gives the response from the earlier responses. If it doesn't, like this is completely new and it does not have similarities with my earlier question, like who is the landlord or the tenant, then it tries to does the hybrid retrieval again, right? So I'm not going with all the details, that's what it comes here, but what it happens is based on the clauses, ultimately it's summarized from the two documents, and if you wanted to see again, you're gonna see there's a re-ranking happens. Four of the informations came from one of the documents, two of the informations came from the other documents, right? And it has a 90% confidence level, right? You see that's whatever the ranking that it comes makes, that what it basically tells, right? So this is so in this way when it comes, right? So now we know that's how the hybrid retrieval work, how the grounded answers we can get. Now what I wanted to show you some additional features, which is the summarizations options and the compare options. What we did here is say I have a um, this document, so list extension document, I have a summarize button. When I click this summarize button, I have an option to executive key points by sections and detailed summarization. When this summarization happens, when we click this summarization, it does not go for any embeddings. It directly looks at the documents and generate all of these things based on the chunking itself. And chunk data gets stored into the GCS storage. Here also we have an options for the evaluations. So now it can do it many different ways, like executive summary, key points by sections, and you see the score here evaluations, all of this thing, coherence and specificity. If I click key points, you're gonna see a different kind of summary here, right? Which will gonna summarize the documents based on the key points that it identifies, and it explains that particular business. Completely different type of summaries. I'm not going to the bisections and detail for the demo, but again this can be done. And next what I wanted to show you is that I have a multiple documents, say that lease extension documents, and I have another documents earlier I have shown. This is the original lease documents, and then when I select multiple documents, right, then I have an option to either summarize to docs or lease compared to docs or compared to docs. What I wanted to do here is I wanted to compare these to doc. Now compare lease amendment. I click this one. When I click this, what happens is this it kicks off, right, the comparisons between these two documents, right? Why it is compared to docs and lease comparison docs? Here, specifically when you ask me the lease compare, it runs an agentic workflow from two different docs. What are the things that gets changed, like the comparison summary mentioned you, then say just change terms, right, before after impact risk level base source added obligations and all of these things, right? Now these are the way that you can run something. I'm not show you now how the agent workflow works. I will have a separate video for that. But if you wanted to see the compared to docs for any docs, you can also compare it. Not necessarily need to be lease. For the lease, I have a specific workflow that works only for the lease. But as a general document, if I wanted to click and start having a comparisons, I can still do that. What it basically do is it looks at what are the differences between these two documents, what are the similar informations, what are dissimilar informations, right? Then it puts together what exists in A versus what exists in B. Let's see what's the comparison results comes here. Now we know now what's the how the summarization working, how the comparisons working, how the hybrid retrieval working, and the last pieces that remains after that is it capture all the audits as a traces. I'm gonna show you just a minute. But now here you see the document comparison law only in doc 1 and only in doc 2 and these things. This is how the comparison comes. You can rerun if you do not like it. What happens is when you next time run, it picks up from here and then can give you better informations. So now let's look at that, as I mentioned you about the audits, right? Here you see that's whatever run, who runs, what activity happens, all the audit logs are there as part of the admin. And also that whenever somebody asks any questions, right? Like these are the two questions we ask. We have the entire traces in place, right? How this happens, promptly, preliminary rank, hybrid retrieval, query embedding, then it checks the users limits and all of these things, right? So I hope it helps you to understand that's how our end-to-end workflow is working. Thanks.